Thank you for watching on how to make a couple different rosehip oils, one used with the dry herbs and the other with the fresh herb. Again, always consult your physician if you're going to be taking anything like that internally, please. If you liked this video, share it with your friends so they can also start making this stuff on their own. Like it if you liked it and comment if you made your own. I love hearing how others have made their oils. And you guys, it is so simple. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. Okay guys, so we are doing the rosehip oil. I'm gonna show you two methods today. We're gonna do a rosehip oil with dried rosehips and one with fresh. And as you see, I went harvesting yesterday, so I've got a lot of fresh rosehips here. So I'm gonna take some and dry them and then cut up some for the fresh rosehip oil. I do already have some dried rosehips for the batch of serum for your face. Now, oils, let's talk about oils for a second. You can use any oil that you choose. However, keep in mind, you probably want about a year's shelf life with this oil, just because you don't want any bacteria growth. So for my dried rosehips, I'm actually using jojoba oil because I know that one's going to be used fairly quickly. And then I've got avocado oil for my fresh rosehips. Okay, so making the fresh rosehip oil here. There's a little black thing on the end of these rosehips. What we're going to do is we're going to cut that portion off, and then we are going to cut up the rosehip into small pieces. Now, inside, there are seeds and there are little tiny hairs, okay? So if you have sensitive skin, this could be very itchy to you. Those hairs were also made as itching powder. So be very cognizant of that. And we're gonna like extra strain our oils when they're done because we don't want those hairs getting, on our face especially. Okay, so let's do the dried rosehip oil. So this one, I'm using 20 grams of the dried rosehips. Now, if you have dried rosehips that are not small and crushed like this, go ahead and put them in like a little blender or a magic bullet and crush those up. And then you're going to be adding your oil of your choice. And then just stir it around, mix up that oil really well in here. Okay. So this oil, what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna let it sit for about 4 to 6 weeks. I'm probably gonna transfer this to a smaller container, of course, a little bit more airtight, but you can use a bigger container if you're making more. You could double, triple the recipe. This, you wanna let it sit at room temperature 4 to 6 weeks in a dark, cool place. And you want to get it out and shake it around at least twice a week. And then filter it really, really well when you're done, again, just because we don't want any of those particles of the rosehips, especially if there are any little tiny hairs left in this one. We don't want to be putting those on our face. Okay, so now for the stovetop method, which this method using the fresh rosehips, you can actually use quickly. You don't have to store for 4 to 6 weeks. So if you want something fairly quickly, this is what you're going to want to do. So I just added, for an individual serving, you're going to want to go 90 grams of oil of your choice, and then you want to do 40 grams of rosehip, fresh rosehip, all chopped up here of your choice. I did double this because I'm going to share this with a family member. So let's make sure we get all of it in here, all the seeds. One thing I want to talk about too, you want to, when you're doing picking with rosehips, you want to wait until the first frost has hit, wherever you're located. Hopefully you're in a place where it gets cold like that. Because what happens after that first frost is you're actually going to double these awesome medicinal properties of the rosehips. It has so much more vitamin C than oranges. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what this little fruit actually has medicinal-wise. Okay, so now we have waited the allotted time for the rosehips to sit in that oil. It is now time to strain them, the fun part. Okay, so if you're using a double boiler or you're using just a bowl with your pan, you want to make sure to wipe off all that excess water so it doesn't drip into that oil, right? Because we don't want an oil water mixture. That is recipe for bacteria big time, guys. So this is a nut bag. I've got a strainer and a bowl underneath here. So all I'm doing is just pouring everything in. Make sure to get all the seeds, all the oil out of here. Okay. So now all we're gonna do is wrap up the nut bag here and just strain out the oils, okay? The reason I like to use the nut bags is because it's really gonna catch all those little hairs that can be irritating. Again, those little hairs actually were used to make itching powder. So, hey, if you ever want to do that for a practical joke, you know how to make itching powder now. Okay, so here we have our oil. Just dump it into whatever nice, good, airtight container you have. And I will transfer this into some other smaller bottles so we can use it on our face and our body and whatever else we need. And that is it.